In this video, I wanted to talk about the upcoming financial recession that a lot of economists and also top agency owners that I work with think is about to happen. And in retrospect, when we look at this in a few years from now, we might think that we actually are currently seeing all of the signs of a recession, even if it doesn't happen for a few more quarters. And so what I wanted to do was talk about how my agency was able to grow 65% plus during a recession in 2020 to 2021, that mini recession we had, and how you could actually prepare your agency to grow as well during this upcoming recession. There's a few key things that you can do. So the first thing that you can do if you're thinking about this upcoming recession, how to prepare for it, is to start to think really seriously about cutting your costs. So one of the first things that we did as we navigated the recession in 2020 and 21 was we started to cut all miscellaneous costs like credit card expenses that we didn't really need to be paying for, so like software subscriptions and things like that. We really started to take a clean, fresh look at our talent on our team. And one thing that we did, which was unfortunate because we didn't want to lose anybody on our team. We loved our team. It was really fun to work with them, but we actually had to downsize a good amount because of COVID, about like 30%. We lost about 30% of our business. And what happened was that only the top performer stayed on the team. Now, that actually turned out to be a bit of a blessing in disguise, because what happened is, even though we had wonderful employees we were working with, we didn't really have the right people in the right roles. So they weren't really the best for the positions they were in. And because of that, we suffered as an organization without even really knowing it. So the recession actually helped us in a lot of ways, because it forced us to look at everything from a cost basis and say, are we actually getting an ROI from this person in this role? Are they contributing to the culture and to the organization in positive ways? And we took a hard look at that because we were forced to, and actually ended up being more efficient and growing more because we had the right people in the right seats. Right? So that was a big thing for us. Now, the other thing that you can do during a recession to grow and scale is you can lower your prices. Now, I had a big conversation about this with the people in my Agency Go membership recently during one of our daily power hours. And one of the things that we talked about was how a lot of them were resistant to lowering their prices, right? They said, I don't want to lower my prices. I don't want to lower my prices. I understand this to an extent, but here's a little story or an anecdote that I'll give you about lowering your prices during a recession. One of our competitors, their name is Cleverly. It's not really a secret, because if you go type in like LinkedIn lead generation, you'll see that our names are right next to each other in a lot of ways. And I remember learning just and seeing like from their posts online and everything, their agency had grown a lot during the recession. Ours grew too, but theirs actually grew faster than us. And part of the reason why it grew faster, I think, was because one of the primary mechanisms that we grew was through Google Ads during the recession, and so did they. They were charging a lower price than us. Our prices were more expensive, and during that time, everyone was kind of like a bargain hunter. They wanted to find things that were cheaper, so they would just go with the cheaper solution. You have to think of it that way, is if you can afford to discount something, then you should discount it. I will say there is a bit of a limit to this. For instance, inside the group, we were talking about how the top agencies that I've interviewed, the ones who do, let's say, over $10 million per year in revenue, I have yet to interview a single agency that has been able to hit that point in a traditional agency model. They're not a SaaS-enabled service. It's a different kind of model, right? They're like a legitimate traditional agency model. I've yet to see an agency get past $10 million in revenue offering less than $2,000 per month in revenue. And if you're an agency listening to this that's doing over $10 million per month or year in revenue, comment below if you actually have a retainer that's less than $2,000, because I've yet to see it. It's very rare that has happened. And so, in my opinion, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to keep it too low. But if you can afford to discount, let's say from $4,000 per month to $2,000 per month, I think you should do it if you can afford to, meaning that your margins are still really good. And what I mean by this is basically, if you have a really good arbitrage opportunity, let's say you have a really good system that nobody knows how to do, like let's say it's software development, nobody else really knows how to do software development, and you have a really good system for that, and you want to deliver it to people, and they really don't have the right kind of talent, so they can't really hire anyone else, so they have to go with you. So you have some really good arbitrage in the market. You're taking advantage of market inefficiency. When the market is good, you can have a cash surplus. You have all this extra cash because you're taking advantage of such an amazing arbitrage opportunity. So maybe your margins in good times are like 80% gross margins. But if you can afford to discount 10% and get to 70% gross margins, or even 50% gross margins, because that's still considered good for most agencies, then maybe you're just operating at a normal capacity during a recession, and you're operating at a cash surplus during the good times. And that's really what you want to be doing. You want to be doing above the average during good times, and you want to be doing basically average during a recession if you can afford to. And that's what I mean by if you can afford to. And that's actually how we been operating with our own agency is we've been delivering really good services at a really good rate and having a really good margin on them for the last like 6 months because we optimized a lot of our processes. And so now when the recession comes, I know what's going to happen. Everybody's going to come to us and twist because we will have the cheapest prices and we can sustain it, because right now, before the recession, we're in a cash surplus. We're actually doing really well. And when the recession comes, it's only going to catapult our business because everyone's going to cancel their contracts with big agencies and they're going to come work with us. Now, that might be wishful thinking. You might be able to think that's wishful thinking. I don't think so. I think that's actually what is going to happen. And I have some proof to back this up. One of our interviews, this guy named Cooper Saunders, I talk about him a lot on the show, mainly because I've interviewed a lot of people in the last 7 months. And I will say his is probably the most unique case because he was able to scale his agency to $10 million or $8 million in revenue, in yearly revenue. He's 25 years old, did over the last 7 years. And one of the things that he said happened was during the recession in 2020-21, one of the biggest growth spurts that he had in his agency came from everyone ditching their old marketing, more expensive marketing teams and outsourcing it, because his entire team is out of Kansas City, I think. It's Kansas City or St. Louis. Because of that, everything is so much cheaper than on the coast. So like where I'm from, I'm in California. It's so expensive to hire people in California. But if you hire them out of the Philippines or somewhere else, or you hire them out of Europe, or you hire them out of the Midwest, everything is cheaper than on the coast, which are some of the most expensive places on planet Earth. And so you have to think about that in your calculation, because talent is actually something that is the most expensive part of any agency in a lot of respects. It's like one of the most expensive costs, right? And then the other thing to think about during a recession, this is the last note I'll leave you with, is that talent will actually become a lot more available. So if you have your eye on someone and you thought, hey, I would love to hire them, but I can't, they're out of my expense range for the month, usually that talent's going to become more available. And that's what happened to us. Our agency actually flourished during this time, and not even just talent, what also became cheaper was our Google ad spend. So we really blew it with Google ads because things just started to become cheaper. Less people were spending money on Google ads, so Google ads gave more impressions and more conversions to people who had less money to spend. And so we gained this advantage because we were still humming along because of the other things I mentioned. And because of that, everything just kept going and growing and scaling because they gave us really good rates on the ad spend. And so this is what I would focus on if I were you during this upcoming recession. I would make these things a priority. And again, to recap, discount your services if you can afford to, cut the cost on your expenses as much as possible, and trim the fat on your team. If there's anybody on the team that you think is not efficient or maybe not up to par, see if you can move them off the team as quickly as possible. And then also see if you can maintain a normal profit margin in a downturn and a cash surplus in a positive time like we're in right now, which is maybe we're in a recession right now, who knows? But I mean, we're not technically in one yet. So if you can have a cash surplus and then translate it to normal margins during a recession, I recommend you do it. So I hope you like this video. I hope it helps you make sense of what's about to happen or might be currently happening, which is this agency apocalypse that might happen during this recession. Let's see if you can survive. I hope that you can. I believe in you, and hopefully this helps you grow even faster during this upcoming downturn that might occur. Thanks.